Most of us have the luxury of being able to sit down for our meals, but the Grey Wardens do not have that luxury. They're out in the wilderness, rough terrain, day after day, looking for the demons, because you know they're coming. They're always coming, and it's the Grey Wardens who are out there on the front lines. They have to take their meals on the go, wherever they can get them. Make them ahead of time, put them in a pack, carry it with them. Grey Warden's pastry pockets. That's what we're making today. We're not out in the wilderness ourselves, so we can afford to be a little bit more generous with our ingredients, perhaps. But there's still not that many. For the filling itself, we're going to start with just over a pound of meat. Ours was provided by the local farmers who are always willing to give up some of their food for the Grey Wardens. We've got some onion, one medium. I've got a couple small here. We'll see how it goes. Same with potatoes, one medium. Mine are kind of small. A little bit of salt and whatever herbs you happen to have. I've just got a little blend that I keep in a pouch. For the pastry, if we were really taking this out and about, we want something that was tough, that could stand up to the rigors of being jostled around in a pack. So maybe it would just be a hot water pastry. We can be a little more fancy here. So I am using a recipe that I learned from some bakers in Orlais. These Orleisian bakers chuckled when they were describing this pastry to me. They called it a rough puff. It's got lots of butter, about 1 imperial stick and a half, 2 cups of flour, a little bit of salt, and some cold water straight from the stream, as cold as you can get it. The butter's been all cut up into little chunks, and we want that to be as cold as possible too. So these Orleisian bakers told me the key to getting their pastry to puff up is to be cold and quick. So we've got our flour and our cut up butter, our salt, and we're just going to mix that up. You could use a fork or a couple of knives or a pastry tool. I'm just going to use my hands and be very quick. I'm pinching these little pats of butter, trying to break them up into crumbs, get them all covered in flour as quick as I can. And I'll do this until the little bits of butter and flour resemble kind of a coarse crumb, maybe some small pebbles. Again, working quickly. I don't want the butter to melt. Okay, that's good. And then a little bit at a time, I'm going to pour in our cold water. And I'll just keep adding a little bit of water at a time until the dough just comes together. For this amount, maybe 6, 8 tablespoons at the very most is all we need. A little bit more. All right, I think that's good. Might have even been just a little bit too much. Next, we're going to roll it out on our board. I'm going to sprinkle some flour. And as quick as we can, we're going to roll it out as thin as we can. And then we'll take it and fold it like so. And turn it and roll it some more. Fold it, fold it. And again, working quick is key. Fold and fold. And we'll do this 1 or 2 more times. So I'm going to set this off to the side, try to keep it as cold as possible. We'll come right back to it. In a bowl, it can be the same one. We're going to mix up our meat, put in our salt and our herbs, and then the potato and the onion. We can use our knives and chop this up very small. I've got a tool that will just let me shred this into tiny pieces. I'm going to do that. I think that will help them melt together into the filling. And we'll just mix this together with our hands too. We're not going to pre-cook these. They're going to cook inside the shell. So we're done with the mixing. Let's get back to the pastry. Our recipe makes 8 of these pockets. So I'm going to cut the dough in half and keep half of it cold while we roll out the first 4. And we'll just roll it as thin as we can. I've got a bowl that is about 5.5 inches. We want it to be maybe a ½ inch either way. This is a perfect size. So I'm just going to make sure that I can fit 4. Almost. So there's our first 4. Those Orlesians would be laughing at me because of my lack of skill, but that's okay. And then I'm going to take about 2 tablespoons of our meat mixture and put in the center of each one. And then I've got some cold water that I'm just going to brush on the edges with my finger. And then carefully work our dough up. Bring the edges together like a dumpling. And press them to seal. Again, we got a little tear. Need more practice with this. And this is much fancier than what the Grey Wardens would take out into the field with them. But the Orlesian bakers told me this would work. Cut a couple little slits to let the steam out. Although since they're tearing and not sealing, that's probably moot. And then we'll roll out the next 4. And I've got my pan here. I'll put some baking paper on. We're going to put them in a 400-degree oven for 30 to 40 minutes until they are starting to brown. That should be enough to cook through the meat and the potatoes and the onions inside, as well as bake and crisp up the pastry. Let's see how they go.
These came out surprisingly well. I had my doubts going in. The recipe needed quite a bit of help. The description called the pastry a puff pastry, but it is not. It was just a basic pie dough. I added many of the folds and turns to try to get it to puff a little bit. It did have some flaky layers, so that was good. The ones shown in the picture in the book were made following a different method than what was described in the recipe, so theirs looks very different from mine. The seasonings that I put in with the filling were entirely my idea. It was pretty bland going in. But even with all that, I would totally make these again. They were delicious, and I enjoyed snacking on them over the next few days. And I like the book, too. I like how it's put together. The recipes were submitted by people that worked on the game, and it's nice to have like that personal connection. It's not just somebody who brought in fantasy recipes to try to fit the theme. It's a cookbook made by people involved with the game, and that's fun. So just going forward, I'll know that I need to be a little skeptical of the recipes, give them a little help where they're needed, but I'm totally looking forward to spending more time in Thedas and the foods of Dragon Age.